That's it for now. More in an hour.
News Talk Weather.
Thanks to Des Kelly Interiors, the wood floor experts. Supplying and fitting your new wood floor.
A few showers early tonight, but soon drying out with clear spells and winds becoming light. Cold in many places though, with a sharp frost and some icy patches. Lowest temperatures of between -1 and +2 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
Welcome to Thursday's Off the Ball. Nathan with you until 10 o'clock this evening. So, last time we were on air at 10 o'clock last night, I couldn't quite figure out whether we were on air as Manchester United were beating Paris Saint-Germain in the closing seconds. What should have been this momentous piece of radio basically boiled down to a bitching session between Joe and JP about whether or not we should stay on air till the end of the game or go to news and Tom Dunn. So what could have been 2 minutes of describing the end of the game just ended up in that sort of awkward back and forth where you're sitting at dinner and the couple beside you are having a row and you're like, oh, this is just awkward for everybody. Yeah. So instead of describing the action, they literally ended up just having a
Barney. I missed
a Barney.
I watched a bit back today. I saw Joe screaming at the penalty being scored, but then I sort of lost it at that
just from a purely neutral point of view.
Well, he's very excited, but for some reason he's just excited by drama.
He loves the high drama.
Who isn't? I was obviously very much on Joe's side. I was like, you tell that producer and put him back in his place. Yeah. We stay on air for as long as necessary.
Because you're there for the listener, Nathan, if nothing else.
You're about the story.
He did make JP said, we got to get to news. Joe made the very valid point, this is the news.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Sounds like a day-to-day quote.
It's a fraught situation.
I, last night, was playing five-a-side between 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock. So
That's part of your keep fit regime as highlighted in the recent Irish Examiner interview. Yeah.
Actually, it was my first time playing five-a-side in about 2 years.
Apart from the recent Irish Heart Foundation event. It was your first time playing five-a-side in 2 years.
Boom. Upsetting feature, actually, I've just realised again of last night's five-a-side. It's an over 35s.
Oh, yeah.
You've reached that age.
It's wonderful. It was only when I got home, I was like, there's something really enjoyable about that. It's like, it wasn't some little sprinting past you. Huh? You're a little 20-year-old, fit little fecker, straight out of school, probably still playing
11 aside,
just destroying you. It was like, actually, you know, I'm one of the youngest ones here.
I am. Mates of mine have set up an over 35 team as well. It's like
you should go for it.
You can become the bright new thing again now. You're like, we've got some good young lads coming through, 36, 37s. You know, they're on the way up.
It was so enjoyable.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but then like, what happens then is though, like, you just realise you are fooling yourself completely though. When you then eventually end up in the company of like younger football players, so it's great. It's like the grade one horse going back down to like the lowest grade. It's like, still got the speed there, but actually, you know.
I don't know if I was ever the grade one horse.
No, I was just being
Richie. I don't know if you identify with this. Maybe some of our listeners with young children do. So I play a lot of football with my kids out in the green.
Yeah.
And I am bloody Lionel Messi.
Oh yeah.
I am full of all the tricks. I can do anything. There's a realization when you go and play with, adults and you try the same thing that actually it turns out you're going to get absolutely clattered and killed.
I have this wonderful image of you as that dad from the Fast Show who's just intent on teaching his kids the harsh realities of sport.
Oh, I'm doing these rainbow
beating them
kicks.
to a blind pulp.
You name it. I can do it all against
celebrating every goal.
Yeah. Sorry, anyways, I've gone off on a tangent there, massive tangent.
Very unlike
you. So I watched the first half of the game and then recorded the second half of the game so that when I get home, I'll be able to sit down and relax. Walking out, five-a-side, the guy who collects the money walks over. Unbelievable! Rashford, penalty, 94th minute, United win 3-1. Literally, 20 lads turn around and are like, we're going to kill you.
Yeah. It's not
there is nothing, but this isn't even it's not even accidentally looking at your phone and seeing a WhatsApp about it. Like, come on, everybody knows. You don't go telling people the score of the game if they're not watching it.
I think the concept of like not recording something and not knowing the result till later, I think it's next to impossible now. I know people who have done it very recently. I think my brother was telling me that for some recent match, don't tell us anything that happened. But it's just how can you not? I mean, you could have gone on in the car last night on the way home and said, I listened to the news at 10 o'clock. I'm not going to miss that much.
And then Joe Malloy's delayed the news.
Down in the background.
Well,
maybe
there
could have been people who left their five-a-side going, listen, well, off the ball's over, but I wouldn't mind I want to know what's going on with Brexit. Yeah, or see what Tom Dunn's got.
I'm fairly sure Tom Dunn started the show with elbow magnificent, which would have been a subtle little hint as to what had gone before. Anyway, sorry, that was the story of my evening of Manchester
It's probably
United.
not the best where you were story of that night, but it was all right. You know, it was okay.
You're not going to the after dinner circuit with that one.
No.
I'll be honest.
Okay. Well, what's your bloody story?
No, I was just watching it at home on the couch. Yeah.
Okay, fine.
It's about as lively as yours.
Tell us your stories, your momentous stories for this unbelievable night for Manchester United.
There was a really good tweet by John Nicholson earlier on saying that, you know, what should be this massive water cooler moment, especially over in the UK, has actually been tempered by the fact that, you know, relatively speaking, very few people would have actually seen the match. And I'm not sure if the situation would have been the same here, but the fact that it's squirreled away on pay TV does hurt the element of it being this magnificent moment that everybody is talking about. Like, everybody who wanted to watch it watched it and is certainly talking about it. But
you know what we could have done to add to the
one.
experience? We could have got Clive Tilsley on the phone for the closing stages.
That would have added.
And get him to do a bit of off-tube commentary.
I've made this suggestion before. We should get Clive involved. Champions League nights. Bring the magic.
Studio. Clive, Kenny, together.
Good Lord.
Be an interesting mix.
It could be glorious.
But I don't think as well that we've actually been spoiled in recent years by great Champions League moments. So I don't think any of them last long enough. I mean, that was brilliant, right? But like the Barca PSG comeback, I thought you would never see anything like that. And then even you have sort of epic moment of Ronaldo's overhead, and you know, or like just you actually take your pick of them now when you think about it. So it's been the bar is so high that, you know, that where were you moment or whatever. I actually think, I mean, last night, it was amazing. It was great drama, but I actually think there's a very good
something
chance
to surpass it next
a year
week.
from a lot of people.
Why is that? Is football getting better, or is it a massive recency bias?
Bit of recency bias.
That we get to see everything now.
Yeah.
So that any great moment of drama is definitely going to be on television.
It gets overtaken pretty quickly by events. I also don't think people dwell on stuff that long either. You know, it's not as if. I do think the show rolls on pretty quickly. As much as something is amazing of a time, like Barca didn't win the Champions League that year when they made the comeback, so sort of it lost its sheen a small bit. Now maybe there's a Solskjær story here that even if they go and they lose in the next round and they don't go on and win the competition, which you'd have to say is fairly unlikely.
You enjoy the moments as well.
You have, well, you should, and like of course you should, but I don't know. I just don't know if people, you know, revel in them for as long.
Was it a penalty for you?
Well, I suppose, like, if you have a strict application of the law, I mean, even then you can argue it. I'm not convinced. I mean, I didn't think it was going to be given. I just assumed it wasn't going to be given when I watched the replay, because you have this thought in your head, well, that one you can debate it enough. PSG at home, I can't see him giving this. I mean, there's interesting stuff. I saw Jack Pitt-Brook, and there's been a few pieces written about, you know, the VAR when it comes to handballs, and certainly it is it's a tough one, because certainly when you slow it down to slow motion, where do you stop? I mean,
we saw this at the World Cup. It felt as though with VAR at the World Cup that there were far more handballs being given for penalties for a cross that would deflect off somebody and sort of clip somebody's hand even though they didn't know anything about it. But because you say it was
it seems to be adding validation to your inclination. Like if you kind of think it's a handball, you slow it down to such a degree where there's obviously contact with the arm, but it's slowed down to such a degree that everything looks intentional.
Yeah.
I don't. There's obviously a conversation around VAR at the moment, and again after the various things that happened in that game and in the game between Porto and Roma.
Yeah.
The bigger issue, I think, is what happened in Porto and Roma, and in the last 10 minutes of matches, of how many stoppages you should have, and should you actually check everything when you're in injury time of a game of that importance. So Roma should have had a penalty if they had gone and looked at it. You do wonder if the delay for the previous penalty meant that the referee was thinking, we're going to be here all night at this stage. I can't check everything, but in a way, you have to.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course. I mean, that one probably should have been looked at. I think, you know, there's these debates about how you should apply it. Should each team? It's like the old the tennis thing where you have a couple. You can have a couple of challenges that you keep in your locker. And is there a way of tweaking it to make it better in some way? Like the Porto Roma one towards the end, like the penalty that was given to Porto was the perfect illustration of what VAR should do, and that it discourages negative play in the box, like pulling someone's shirt back. If people have seen this one, that's perfect. You know, that's that's stopping cynical play and blocking and stuff in the area that shouldn't happen. But the handball stuff, it's actually impossible to guard against that, really, you know. So it's just adding another element to the game rather than discouraging negative defending or negative play.
Two very different perspectives on the text machine. 53106. If you want to let us know where you were, it couldn't be more exciting than my evening, but maybe somehow people had a more enjoyable experience.
I reckon the bloke who told you had a really exciting evening. He's like, I went and I ruined it for 20 lads after. That was a much better evening.
Lads, will there be any sanity in the studio tonight?
No.
I realise that Ole Busby is the flavour of the month. If one leaves the huge amounts of good fortune lately to one side, is the football that much better than under Jose?
Yes.
Possession regularly in the 30 and low 40%, barely getting by teams like Southampton and Leicester, and don't mention injuries. There was over a couple of £100 million of talent on the pitch, says Eddie.
With all due respect, it will be remarkable that Alex Ferguson comes back from a brain tumour and being retired to win a third Champions League as a manager this season.
Oh, you're going with this conspiracy theory that Ole Gunnar Solskjær is essentially a puppet and Alex Ferguson is
100%
pulling the strings.
100%.
I'm not going
It's
along with that.
nakedly obvious. He's turned up at every single match. He's installed people that he knows from working under him during his tenure there.
How far do you think his influence spreads? Do you think he's picking the team?
Yeah.
There's an earpiece that he's actually speaking through.
He could well be. It could be like the movie Roxanne.
He was in the dressing room afterwards, suspiciously present, like, you know, very quickly after.
He's constantly there where he hasn't been before.
Pogba's book says, well, Pogba, I guess, Pogba was probably in the dressing room at half-time, that he was wheeled in a laundry basket to give the half-time team talk.
Yeah, or there was a time delay during all of Ole's speeches, because he was having the old feedback issues as it was coming through.
Is this not just momentum in football?
But they were also,
everything?
I mean, I don't, like, in fairness to the text, like, I mean, they were hugely lucky last night. I mean, there's no, I mean, if the penalty isn't given at the end, I think there's a what's the story that's written today? What were the pieces that were probably written at 9:30 last night? It would have been, you know, very positive. You know, you see them throwing on the kids towards the end, and it's almost a sense of, well, this is almost a play to say, well, here we go. There's a legacy.
Well, Eric Bailly gone off after
here.
36 minutes.
We got that wrong.
Was that good fortune that Bailly got injured, or was that good management that he realised the errors of his ways and took him off before half time?
Certainly wasn't injured.
Bit of both. Well, he wasn't injured. Oh no. What do you mean he
was hobbling?
He hobbled.
Of course he was.
He
Yeah.
hobbled really
I'd be
hard
hobbling
off
too
that
if I was
pitch.
performing like that.
Yeah, but he did get that wrong. This is the thing, and it wasn't punished. So it was a story as much of PSG heartbreak as it was United genius, but it's always been spun into the Ole story.
The other perspective is, my moment was getting on my knees in a huddle with my two sons, 6 and 8, for the penno, arms around each other as Rashford stepped up. Their love of Manchester United came alive and it will never leave them. We weren't doing that 3 months ago, says Owen and Claire. Isn't that a beautiful thing? That's what football's all about.
Kids probably up a bit late, were they?
Yeah, it's a bit late for kids to be up, to be fair, if they're 6 and 8.
They weren't there 3 months ago because they weren't able to.
Come on, school this morning. They're going to be shattered.
It's more book day today. They should have been dressing up as a character.
Wow. Maybe they dressed up as Ole Gunnar Solskjær.
It's not a character.
Superhero.
It's not a character from a book.
True superhero.
You got to go with fiction, Nathan. You got to
puppet,
make an
if you
effort.
believe
Isn't there something refreshing about plucky superpowers, Ajax and Manchester United getting big wins in Europe? Love an underdog story, says Kevin Stillorgan. I did see that point raised of, yes, wow, the world's richest team has pulled off a massive
Yeah, there's
job.
no the romance of it. I mean, Man United were still part of those Super League talks, which involves, nuking all the small teams in Europe. They're not welcome. And
The Ajax thing is a nice story.
Ajax is a nicer story. I think they might have been allowed into the Super League.
Well, when
they were maybe going to get invites.
When your lead striker is somebody that Southampton sold at a loss, you're thinking, you know what?
No,
I'm all for this.
I like the Ajax story. I mean, I don't like it. I pretty much don't want any of the clubs that were proposing the Super League to win the Champions League, but unfortunately you're left with nobody then.
Is there not a certain romance to the United story of what's happened over the last 5 years?
Joel Glazer was in the dressing room last night celebrating.
If you're to look at the ownership of pretty much every club, the romance has gone pretty quickly. But what United have done over the last 5 years and searched around for the best possible manager, from Moyes to Van Gaal to Mourinho, none of them could get it to click. And then they look back to one of their heroes.
Yeah, a guy who died in his arse at Cardiff City is suddenly the best manager in the world.
Well,
He was twiddling his thumbs at Mulder for the past couple of years.
Is that not a story of reinvention?
It's a huge story, and it's.
I'm not having the Fergie thing. I'm sure Fergie's a positive influence around the place.
Richie's killing this story here.
I'm not killing the story.
It's actually made for a perfect biopic story. Where Ole's in Norway, wondering will he ever get back, looking at the 1999 retrospective stuff all the time.
He's like, surely
watching his MUTV subscription in the house.
Surely this tape of highlights I've sent him on my time in charge of Cardiff is finally going to get me the United job.
Derek says, I was watching the Michael Jackson documentary.
Oh, Jesus.
Wasn't half as weird as the United game, though.
Oof.
The reason is because the Champions League for the last 10 years is the best sport and the best concentration of talent there has ever been, says Aaron.
Yeah.
That's the reason for the drama.
Pretty damn good.
Lads, I was listening to the last few minutes of the match on Off the Ball on the TV. Herself simply said, you were actually listening to a match on the TV. Rolled her eyes to heaven and walked out of the room. Great memories.
Got me with the days and be watching it on Teletext.
Oh.
Refresh.
Halcyon days.
Waiting for it to refresh. You kept having to go to 2 out of 2 to get back to 1 out of 2 to see what had happened.
There is a certain element of watching a game like on live score or flash score these days where you're just kind of waiting for something to tick over and happen. That does bring to my life that Teletext page 220 or 220.
The Teletext.
I used to think my mastermind subject would be Teletext pages.
312. 312 was like news and
Transfer
brief.
gossip.
Yeah.
Transfer gossip.
Yeah, it was the brief stuff. Yeah. 301 was the big news. Wasn't it?
Headlines.
301 was the headlines,
That was the big stuff.
But even down to like game reviews, 628. On Channel 4. Channel 4 Teletext was where it was at.
Do you know,
used to have a really good music section.
Because Cheltenham is obviously coming up next week. The Cheltenham, obviously, you've the 4 TV races, right? But then the last 2 races that weren't on terrestrial TV, the only way you could follow them live would be on Teletext. So it'd be a similar thing where they'd have the horses up and then you'd refresh the page and it'd be like, fell. Pulled up. And you actually did follow the race through that way. So
now that's drama.
Teletext was a big part of a certain generation's way of
Speaking of drama, we might get a little bit of our own tonight. Rennes have just gone 2-1 up against Arsenal in the Europa League.
Is it 10-man Arsenal as well?
It is 10-man Arsenal. So, Richie, you can fill us in on this.
Yeah, Arsenal actually took an early lead over there in France through Alex Iwobi inside 3 minutes, but they had Socrates Papastotopoulos sent off for 2 quick-fire yellow cards just before half-time. That was followed by a fantastic equalising goal from Benjamin Bourigeaud for them 3 minutes before the break. And as you mentioned, Nathan, just a couple of moments ago, Rennes edging their noses in front. It was Nacho Monreal who went in for an own goal for Rennes. So yeah, 2-1 for Rennes at the moment. There's an 8 o'clock start at Stamford Bridge tonight where Chelsea are entertaining Dinamo Kiev. David Luiz captains Chelsea tonight. What could possibly go wrong there? Kepa Arrizabalaga starts in goal. A back 4 of Davides Zappacosta, Andreas Christensen, David Luiz and Marcus Alonso. In midfield, no N'Golo Kante instead. Jorginho, Ross Barkley and Mateo Kovacic. And William and Pedro are either side of Olivier Giroud. Obviously some goals and live scores at the moment elsewhere, apart from in Rennes, with Sevilla and Slavia Prague drawing 2 apiece. Villarreal 2-up away to Zenit St. Petersburg. Dinamo Zagreb leading Benfica by 1-0, while Eintracht Frankfurt and Inter remained goalless in Germany.
The plan for the evening, by the way, is 7:30 as always. John Giles will be with us to look back on Manchester United, Paris Saint-Germain, on Ajax and on the Merseyside derby as well. You can get your texts in. He'll be here in about 15 minutes on 53106. 8 o'clock, Gizzy Ling and Dahi Regan will join us to look ahead to the weekend's hurling. At about 9:20, we'll be joined by Katie Taylor, who is over in America preparing for a world title fight next week. And then on the football show, we'll bring you some of the best bits from Mick McCarthy's press conference. He announced his extended Ireland squad today, and we will talk to Philippe Auclair, who was quite prescient with his comments last night, saying maybe Kylian Mbappe wasn't in the best form, and we'll get the latest on the fallout from Paris.
I think it's Koke's the man who to follow on the Champions League predictions. I think he's gotten half of them right, 5 out of 6 maybe.
The
right
Atletico Madrid midfielder.
Yeah, I think some of the graphics from Spanish TV where he predicted that Manchester United would beat PSG. Now he's predicted that Schalke will beat Man City, so I don't know what kind of stuff he's taking.
Wasn't there some Manchester United fan, is he from Malaysia or he's from Asia, who actually tweeted last night around 7:20? He basically called it. He was like, Lukaku to score 2, PSG to get 1 back. He was slightly chronologically off.
Did he have money on this?
And then Rashford to knock 1 in the 90. So the club have retweeted it, and the players have been sending him messages now. Lindelof and Diego Dallo and a few of them going, this guy, he's having the moment of his life.
3 words, Asian betting syndicate.
Well, I mean, that's massive labelling and stereotyping at play there. No, it was just a
I'd like to
in
distance
Asia.
myself from Richie's comments.
Not everyone in Asia is in a betting syndicate, Richie. They're just football fans.
Yeah, they just love their football.
It's unbelievably
Floodlights.
cynical.
Bloody hell, Richie. So Mick McCarthy's squad?
Yeah, he's quest to bring goals to his Republic of Ireland squad. I've seen him mine League 1 and League 2 for new call-ups. Luton's James Collins is League 1's top scorer with 20 goals so far this season, and he earns a call for the qualifiers with Gibraltar and Georgia, as does Newport's FA Cup hero Padraig Hammond. Uncapped goalkeeping trio Caoimhín Kelleher, Kieran O'Hara and Mark Travers are all among McCarthy's enlarged squad, as is Sunderland's on-loan defender Jimmy Dunn. There's a familiar hue to the rest of the squad, with Aidan McGeady, James McCarthy and Glenn Whelan all earning recalls, but still no Patrick Bamford. But based on a conversation McCarthy had at the weekend with the lead striker, he's still very much keen to join that panel.
Mick, we spoke to John O'Shea, former captain there, on Monday, and he said that Bamford would be a welcome addition to the squad, but he said that after that the chasing of players has to stop, players who might qualify through the so-called granny rule.
I'll wait till he's sat in this chair, shall we? I love that one. That's good.
Do you think it does have to stop? Or?
It's amazing how people's opinions as a player or an ex-player suddenly changes when you sat in the hot seat. So I won't answer it, we'll wait and see.
Just on the players that...
I mean, England have done it, haven't they? So I will answer, England have done it. They've chased one of our better ones. And they've took him. So it's not only us that's doing it. I think it's my job here to have the best team possible of players that qualify, and that's what I'll continue to do.
Yeah, so he sounded reasonably hopeful that Patrick Bamford may be in.
Probably more than hopeful, really.
June.
I mean, if they're not hopeful, then they've pretty much put Bamford, they've thrown him under the bus. So I think they must be hopeful. I mean, they followed in with what, I mean, they carried a quote on the FAI website over the weekend suggesting that Bamford had responded to their text messages. Yeah. So that's effectively, that's the kind of story that would appear in the newspaper as speculation, but the FAI put it out there on an official source. So I think it's fair to say he probably will be knocking around the place. I mean, the squad generally, like there's 38 names in the list. I feel like we've been here before, that there's a provisional squad announced.
Yeah, we'll chat about this a bit more in the football show. It's interesting because he seemed pretty definite on that he was only going to bring 23 in.
Yeah.
Which means there's 15 names to go out of that list.
So you congratulate lads, or you say, this is great, first called, and that's true. Like it is the first time they've been named in the squad, but they may not actually end up getting here.
Yeah,
We've had this before.
said this is the proudest day of his career.
Yeah, I'm always
you'd love to see him get in and train even and be around the camp, but that may not happen.
This happened with Adam Rooney before, Chris Forrester, several other, Richie Towell, I think. There's people who've been named in squads and then they haven't actually trained here with the group. So unfortunately the congratulations probably have to go and hold a small bit.
The more interesting aspects, and we can get into this a little bit later, is probably around two of our most experienced midfielders in James McCarthy and Glenn Whelan. Glenn Whelan, people thought he'd retired when he played that game against Northern Ireland and got a presentation on the pitch and got
He never retired himself.
Yeah. He was basically being told, we're going to present you with something and don't come back. Yeah. But he is back. He's in this extended squad. And James McCarthy, who when people are picking potential Irish teams, Kenny was doing one last night, we were doing them at the weekend, he's generally in it. But the vibe off Mick McCarthy was that James McCarthy is not going to be playing in these games because
he hasn't played
any football.
Yeah,
How can he select him when he hasn't played any football?
Yeah,
even under 23 level.
Yeah, I mean, he said it last week, and he's reiterated the point that he's spoken to McCarthy and he's told McCarthy he wants him to play, but McCarthy hasn't managed to play. Now, McCarthy at one point was around the Everton squad for that FA Cup game at Millwall. Looked like he was going to be involved. Didn't get off the bench. He hasn't got any minutes at all. So I think, you're not reading, you don't have to read between the lines too hard to see that he's not really going to trust him to play at this juncture unless for some reason he plays at the weekend.
What else you got, Richie?
UEFA is opening a formal investigation into Manchester City over potential breaches of financial fair play regulations. European football's governing body is to focus on several alleged violations by the Premier League champions that it says were recently made public with the Der Spiegel series of football leaks. Among the claims made against City were that they disguised money being invested in the club by its owners as sponsorship deals. It's also claimed that under a scheme called Project Longbow, City used a shell company to pay for players' image rights, keeping millions off their own books in the process. City have posted a response on their website. It says, Manchester City welcomes the opening of a formal UEFA investigation as an opportunity to bring to an end the speculation resulting from the illegal hacking and out-of-context publication of City emails. The accusation of financial irregularities are entirely false. The club's published accounts are full and complete and a matter of legal and regulatory record.
Spoke about this in the show last night. You can listen back to it on offtheball.com. I'm sure we're going to cover it over the coming weeks as well as more develops. The Alex Ferguson thing is a load of total bullcrap. And as for the texter who said that, have they really played any better since Jose clearly doesn't watch football? This is the first time in years that I watch a Manchester United team and can enjoy it. Brings me back to the time I felt they could never lose. Granted, not rolling over teams, but they look like they're playing for each other with confidence. Ole ole, at long last, says Michael.
Very good, Michael.
Bull crap, Richie.
Yeah, that's grand.
Lads, anything that bunch of snowflakes at United achieve has to be seen in the context of them not bothering their arses for the 3 previous managers, says Charles in Dublin 12. Graham Souness brought up that point last night on Virgin Media Sport, and it is going to be interesting to see what develops over the next year, because what they did with Mourinho, not dissimilar to what the Chelsea players did with Mourinho.
Are they the new Chelsea?
So is this going to happen when things start to go wrong under Solskjær, that the players will just stop playing?
The more time they give to, or the more 5-year contracts and 4-year contracts they give to big money players, the more this is actually going to happen, because essentially that's what happened to Chelsea, is a lot of big players and a lot of big money for a lot of years, and essentially they have longer tenure there than any manager is going to have. So of course they're going to wield the power.
Yeah, like you do hear the stories of the players. I think it was commented upon last night that the players were like singing the song about Ole in the dressing room afterwards, and Rashford's social media post with him and Ole, and yeah, there's a honeymoon period there, but I mean it's lasted for a fair period of time, and maybe they just need that style of management to bring the best out of them. But I think it is fair over a year. Like when they come back next August with this expectation at the beginning of the season, now like what he's doing is lifting the expectations of that texter there from rock bottom. Whereas come August, that'll be the test. Well, he will get the job, you would think, at this stage. And he kicks off with not playing catch up, and then it's going to be a slightly different challenge, I would have thought.
Couple of other bits, Richie?
Yeah, the opening round of the Arnold Palmer Invitational, a fairly decent round for Graham McDowell, 4 under par in the clubhouse following a round of 68, helped in no small part by an eagle 3 at the 16th for GMAC tonight. Shane Lowry was progressing nicely, but a bogey at the last saw him drop back to 2 under par. The lead there held by Rafa Cabrera Bello, the Spaniard, with a flawless round of 65 today, is in the clubhouse on 7 under par. Just trying to track down to Rory McIlroy, who was among the later starters.
Dressed like Arnold Palmer.
He's not, is he?
He is. He's got his navy top on and his sort of, I'm going to say, creamy pants as a tribute.
Really wish you didn't use that phrase.
Arnold Palmer. Good round for Graham McDowell, though.
I wouldn't have known that was the Arnold Palmer dress style.
It's when you look at it, you go, yeah.
Creamy pants.
That's what I'm putting out there as.
Chinos, like, or just creamy
No,
pants?
they're not chinos.
Just creamy pants.
You wouldn't wear chinos on the golf course. Is chinos a colour? Or a style?
It's more of a style.
I don't think, you wouldn't wear chinos out on the golf course, would you?
I imagine they restrict your movement.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So need something with a bit more room.
I just feel like creamy pants wouldn't be how he would describe them himself.
Well, maybe someone will ask him post-round.
Yeah.
How'd you get on with creamy pants?
Doherty could ask him the big questions. Send him a tweet there and ask him to find out about his creamy pants.
that could take in any
Let's get
number of
one more
directions.
story, please.
Back-to-back bogeys, by the way, for McIlroy at 4 and 5. He's dropped back to 1 under par. He's currently playing the 8th. Gavin Moynihan, 4 shots off the lead on 1 under par following the opening round of the Qatar Masters. The lead in Doha is held by Justin Walters and Adri Arnaus jointly on 5 under par. And Conor O'Shea has offered his backing to World Rugby's Nations Championship proposals. Promotion and relegation could be introduced to the Six Nations if the plans get the go-ahead, which would place O'Shea's Italy in danger. The Azzurri have finished bottom of the Six Nations table in 14 of their 19th season so far, and are set to end up with this year's wooden spoon yet again. But O'Shea told the BBC that promotion and relegation might just be a positive.
It looks like a really, really good concept. We play 11 internationals every year anyway, so all it is actually formalising something. I think it brings that element of competition. And like in anything, just tell us the rules and we'll play. If there's promotion relegation, there's promotion relegation. If there's not, there's not. Tell us the rules, we'll play. But on the face of it, I think it's a really good step forward in those fallow years outside of lines, outside of World Cup years, and it's a great way to see progression within the game. So, face of it, I think it's a really exciting concept.
All right, that is Conor O'Shea. Richie, thank you. We'll keep you up to date with the Europa League across the evening. Rennes still leading Arsenal by 2-1 and have been all over Arsenal in the second half. Arsenal down to 10 men. There's 13 minutes left in that game. Dan is going to be back with us on the football show when we'll chat to Philippe Auclair and also hear some more from Mick McCarthy after his squad announcement. Katie Taylor to come before 9. Hurling as well, but up next it's John Giles.
Off the ball on News Talk. Weekends on News Talk are about to get brighter. We have a brand new lineup of presenters with some brand new